Okay, today we live in a world that seems to move faster than our hearts can follow. Social media floods us with emotions we cannot process. Deadlines compress our breathing, and small frustrations ignite into storms of anger. In this noise, many of us wonder if there is a way to remain steady, untouched by the chaos that surrounds us. Welcome to Stoic Dhamma, a space where ancient wisdom meets your modern life, where philosophy is not theory, but a way to walk through each day with clarity. Our focus today is a timeless teaching from Chrysippus of Soli, one of the great architects of Stoic philosophy. His reminder that a wise man stays calm, never angry, speaks across centuries, inviting us to reflect on how true strength is found not in force, but in composure. When we hear the words of Chrysippus, a wise man stays calm, never angry, we step into a world where philosophy was not an academic subject, but a way of life. Chrysippus lived in the 3rd century BCE, in a bustling Greece shaped by shifting empires and new schools of thought. He was a successor to Zeno, one of the founders of Stoic philosophy, and his voice carried the strength to refine and preserve this tradition for centuries. Though many of his writings survive only in fragments, the clarity of his ideas still reaches us. Calmness for him was not a luxury, but the essence of wisdom. Chrysippus observed that people are often pulled from reason by the tide of passion, with anger as the most destructive force. In Stoic thought, to be ruled by anger is to be enslaved by it, but to rise above anger is to live in harmony with nature, orderly, rational, and balanced. Calm wisdom was not indifference, but a discipline, the art of acting with strength while guarding inner harmony. Picture the agora of Athens, crowded, noisy, filled with disputes and bargaining. Remaining calm in such a place was a true test. The Stoic philosopher trained his mind as a warrior trained his body. Calmness became armor for the spirit. Anger blinded judgment, but calmness restored clarity, allowing the wise to see truth where others saw only confusion. This idea echoes across history. Marcus Aurelius, writing centuries later in his Meditations, reflected on the futility of rage. Why should we be disturbed when others act according to their nature, just as bees buzz or children cry? To expect the world to bend to our will is folly. Instead, calmness allows us to bend with life like a reed in the wind. We do not break, we do not lash out, we remain steady in our core. In modern life, the lessons of Chrysippus are more urgent than ever. We are surrounded by triggers of anger, traffic jams, political debates, the constant scroll of online disputes. Our days are filled with noise designed to spark outrage, because outrage keeps attention captive. Yet, if we step back, we may ask, what has anger ever given us? Does it heal relationships or does it fracture them? Does it open possibilities or does it close them? The answer, as the Stoics would say, is clear. Anger offers nothing but destruction, while calmness opens the door to understanding. From here, we see that calmness is not passive retreat but active mastery. A calm person does not deny injustice. They face it without surrendering to rage. Seneca warned that anger is a form of temporary madness, stripping us of reason and clarity. To fall into its grip is to act blindly, leaving destruction in our wake. Calm wisdom, on the other hand, allows us to act with precision, to speak in ways that restore rather than wound. This is true strength, never weakness. Modern conflicts often escalate because neither side remains calm. Arguments harden, words cut deep, and wounds form. Yet one calm presence can transform the entire scene. Picture a tense workplace meeting. Voices rise, tempers flare, and suddenly one person pauses, breathes, and responds with clarity. The atmosphere softens, anger dissolves. This is Stoic practice woven into daily life, but there's another layer. Calm wisdom is not only about interactions with others, it is about our own inner state. Think of the storms that rise within: frustration, envy, resentment. These are not external enemies, they are internal. Chrysippus taught that philosophy is a training ground, a way to align reason with nature. When we meet our emotions with awareness, we create space. In that space lies freedom. Anger loses its grip and calmness emerges like a steady flame that cannot be extinguished by wind. Now imagine a person walking through an archaeological site. the ruins of ancient Greece beneath their feet. Stones broken by time, walls collapsed, yet the atmosphere is silent and calm. In that silence, you realize civilizations rise and fall, but human emotions remain the same. The men and women who walked these streets once felt the same anger, the same turmoil. Stoicism was their answer, and it can be ours too. The ruins whisper that calmness outlasts rage, that wisdom carries further than fury. From here we turn to the question, how can we live like this today? How can calmness become more than a rare accident, more than a passing state? It begins with awareness. The Stoics trained daily, reminding themselves that anger is not caused by events, but by our judgments of those events. If someone insults you, it is not the insult itself that wounds you, but your decision to take it as harm. If you choose otherwise, the wound does not exist. This is radical freedom, a freedom rooted in calm wisdom. Yet the challenge remains, for our modern world seems to worship speed. Everywhere we turn, we are encouraged to react instantly, to reply without reflection, to act before thought has fully formed. Quickness is praised and hesitation is seen as weakness. But the Stoics knew otherwise. A life of wisdom cannot be rushed. Chrysippus would remind us that a calm pause is never wasted. That moment of stillness is the essence of mastery itself. In the pause, we step back from the flames of anger and glimpse the truth of the world as it is. Calmness, then, becomes more than an emotion. It becomes a shield, a lens, and a guide. When we are calm, we are no longer trapped in the cycle of emotional reaction. We are directed instead by reason, by clarity, by strength. This teaching is both ancient and urgently relevant today. Born in Athens, carried through centuries of Stoic thought, it arrives as an invitation to live beyond anger and find stillness amid storms. Which leads us to our guiding question. How do we hold calmness in a world designed to provoke? To understand why Chrysippus placed such emphasis on calmness, we must step into the heart of Stoic logic. For the Stoics, philosophy was not speculation. It was a precise map of the human mind. They observed that emotions do not simply arise from nowhere. They are born from judgments, from the way we interpret what happens around us. Anger in particular was seen as the clearest example of how a false judgment could trap the soul. Chrysippus taught that anger begins when we believe something unjust has occurred, and that we are entitled to strike back. The injustice might be real, or it might be imagined. But in both cases, it is not the event itself that generates anger. It is the belief that we have been wronged, and that vengeance will restore balance. This is where the Stoics intervene. They remind us that vengeance does not bring balance. It disturbs balance even further, dragging both the offended and the offender into a cycle of harm. From here, it becomes clear why Stoic philosophy calls anger irrational. Reason seeks harmony with nature, and nature itself is structured, balanced, and impartial. Anger is the opposite. It is chaos. It blinds the mind, distorts judgment, and wounds the one who harbors it. Chrysippus taught that anger can be unraveled by logic. If we trace it to its root, we uncover a false assumption. Correct the assumption, and the anger fades. Picture Epictetus in a quiet courtyard with his students. He explains that an insult is nothing more than sound carried on air, powerless until you decide it has meaning. Stay calm, and it disappears like smoke. Give in to judgment, and you ignite the fire within. The insult dies quickly, but the anger lingers, burning your own heart. Seneca, writing in Rome centuries after Chrysippus, deepened this idea. He called anger a form of temporary madness. In his essays, he described how people in anger strike blindly, harming friends as easily as enemies, destroying what they later regret. He urged his readers to see the absurdity of anger. No one heals illness by becoming ill themselves. So why would we heal injustice by losing our reason? The cure is always the same: patience, perspective, calm wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, offered yet another voice in this chorus. In his meditations, he returned again and again to the theme of anger. He reminded himself that when others act wrongly, it is because they are ignorant of the good. Just as a child does not know better, So too, adults often act in blindness. Should we then be angry at blindness? Or should we guide, teach, and forgive? Anger becomes unnecessary once we see others as parts of the same human family, stumbling through life as we do. But there's another layer. Stoic logic was not only a critique of anger, it was also a training program for the soul. The Stoics believed that by practicing rational reflection, we could catch anger before it took root. Imagine pausing in the first spark of irritation. You ask yourself, is this truly harmful, or is it only my interpretation? Does my anger help me, or does it enslave me? By questioning the judgment that fuels anger, you remove its foundation. What seemed like a storm collapses into silence. This discipline is what gave Stoicism both its depth and its practicality. It was never about burying emotions, only to have them explode later. Instead, it was about transforming them through clarity and reason. Anger, in particular, was not suppressed but examined, traced back to its root and dissolved. For this reason, Stoics practiced daily reflection. Each evening they asked, when did anger appear? What judgment fed it? And could it have been seen differently? Over time, such reflection made them less vulnerable to emotional storms. In our modern age, psychology affirms these insights. Cognitive behavioral therapy, deeply influenced by Stoic thought, teaches that emotions are shaped by thoughts, and thoughts can be questioned. When anger arises, the therapist asks, what belief drives this feeling? Is it true or useful? In this way, Stoic wisdom finds new life in clinical practice. Now imagine yourself standing at the edge of a cliff overlooking the sea. Waves crash against the rocks, fierce and unrelenting. The waves are like anger, powerful but destructive. Yet the cliff stands calm, unmoved. The cliff does not fight the sea, nor does it surrender to it. It simply remains. This is the Stoic ideal, to be steady like the cliff, guided by reason, unshaken by the storms of emotion. The sea may rage, but the soul remains firm. The Stoics understood that anger often wears the mask of strength. Many admire it, mistaking rage for passion, courage, or even justice. Yet Stoic reasoning cuts through this illusion. Real courage is not found in shouting or striking, but in enduring and acting with clarity. Real justice is not born from rage, but from reason, compassion, and fairness. Anger may seem powerful, but it is weakness in disguise. Calm wisdom, though quieter, has the strength to last. Here we face a paradox. If anger is destructive, why do we cling to it? Chrysippus would remind us that it is because we mistake anger for control. We believe expression equals power, when in truth it reveals our loss of power over ourselves. The true control lies in calmness, the ability to choose our response rather than be enslaved by impulse. From here, we turn to the bridge that connects philosophy to daily life. If Chrysippus, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius all agreed that anger is irrational, then what remains is the application of calm wisdom. How do we practice it in our work, our relationships, and our inner journey? How do we embody this ancient insight, not as a theory, but as a way of living each day? This is the path we now enter, as we explore how the logic of Stoicism becomes the practice of life. Calmness is not an abstract virtue buried in dusty philosophy books. It is a living practice, woven into the details of work, relationships, and the inner world of the mind. For Chrysippus and the Stoics, wisdom mattered only when it touched daily existence. To remain steady in a storm of words, to stay composed in moments of tension, this is where philosophy proves its true worth. Calmness at work. Begin with the workplace. Modern careers overflow with deadlines, evaluations, and constant pressure. Frustration becomes background noise. It is easy to feel overlooked by colleagues, impatient when recognition is slow, or overwhelmed when tasks pile high. Yet a calm mind interprets these pressures differently. The wise worker understands that anger does not complete projects, nor does irritation bring solutions. Calmness, by contrast, creates space for clarity. It helps you focus, prioritize, and solve problems without being clouded by resentment. Picture a heated meeting where voices clash. A disagreement starts small but sharpens quickly. In that instant, you face a choice. Join the fire, raise your voice, and escalate, or step back, breathe, and listen. By choosing calmness, you shift the energy of the room. What could have been a battle transforms into dialogue. Here, calmness is not weakness, it is leadership. Calmness in relationships. Relationships are an even greater test of Stoic calm. Intimacy magnifies emotions, and anger often enters where love already exists. A single harsh word can echo for years. Calmness, however, preserves the bond. When your partner, friend, or family member frustrates you, the impulse may be anger, but the Stoics would urge you to pause. Ask, are they acting from malice or from fatigue, ignorance, or pain? More often than not, it is the latter. And if so, why meet their weakness with your own? Calmness opens the way to patience, understanding, and reconciliation. Think of Marcus Aurelius, writing quietly in his tent during military campaigns. Surrounded by uncertainty, he reminded himself that people act from their own perspectives. Expecting them to always align with yours is folly. In relationships, calmness is born when we release the illusion that others must mirror our expectations. We meet them as they are, not as we demand they be. This is how calmness transforms fragile attachment into enduring love. Calmness within. Yet the greatest struggle lies within. Our minds are filled with memories, regrets, and fears. Anger often turns inward. We rage at past mistakes, resent our limitations, and grieve for things we feel we deserved. To apply Stoic calmness here takes courage. It asks us to face ourselves with compassion. Epictetus taught, it is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. This applies not only to insults from others, but to the stories we tell ourselves. Calmness begins when we change the story, when we refuse to treat ourselves as enemies. Practices for calmness. The Stoics insisted philosophy must be lived, not just studied. They trained daily, and so can we. Journaling. Each evening, reflect on moments of anger. What judgment fueled it? Could it have been seen differently? Over time, patterns emerge, and with them comes insight. Mindful breathing. When irritation arises, pause and take deliberate breaths. Count them, feel them, anchor in the present. The body calms the mind, and the flame of anger fades. Writing before reacting. When a heated message arrives, resist replying instantly. Draft a response, then return later with calm eyes. Often, the first reaction proves unwise. The pause of control. Stoics practice the reserve clause, acting with awareness that events may unfold differently than expected. Before reacting, pause and remember, events are not yours to control, but your response is. Endurance and strength. Imagine walking through a museum of ancient artifacts, pots cracked but preserved, statues weathered yet still standing. They endured centuries not by resisting time, but by yielding to it. They did not break in anger, they simply remained. Calmness in daily life is the same. It is endurance, not surrender. Strength, not passivity. The ripple of calm. Calmness is contagious. Anger spreads like fire, but calmness spreads like water, cooling everything it touches. By practicing calmness, you shape not only your own life, but also the atmosphere of those around you. Friends feel safer, colleagues trust more, loved ones rest easier. Your presence becomes a refuge. In our digital age, this ripple is crucial. News cycles, online debates, and social media thrive on outrage. Anger sells, so the world constantly tempts us with it. Yet every time you choose calmness, you step out of that cycle. You refuse manipulation, becoming a quiet force of balance. You remind others that peace is possible even in noise. This is Stoicism as resistance, a refusal to let the world dictate your inner state. Not perfection, but practice. Applying calmness in daily life does not mean perfection. The Stoics never claimed anger could vanish forever. Even the wise feel its spark. What matters is what follows. Do you feed the spark into a blaze, or let it fade into smoke? Calmness is not about never feeling anger. It is about never being ruled by it. Each day offers this choice, and each choice builds the character you carry forward. Calmness as a way of living. Calmness is more than a private virtue. It reshapes work, strengthens relationships, and heals the inner life. It is both a practice and a gift. The question is not whether calmness is possible, but how far we are willing to carry it. With every pause, every breath, every reflection, we move closer to the Stoic ideal, a life guided not by anger, but by wisdom. This brings us forward to the next stage of reflection. Calmness is not just a quick tactic, but a lifelong discipline. The question is not how to stay calm for a moment, but how calmness can shape the entire course of a life. To understand this, we must look at calmness not as an act, but as a continuous journey without end. Calmness is not a destination reached after a single effort. It is a path stretching across an entire lifetime, unfolding gradually through daily choices. The Stoics understood this clearly. Chrysippus of Soli, alongside Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, lived in turbulent times. Yet none treated calmness as a final achievement. Instead, they saw it as a discipline renewed each day. Wisdom, they believed, is not measured by avoiding anger once, but by cultivating balance over years. From this view, calmness is not an isolated act, but a process of shaping the self. A single act of restraint may stop one quarrel, but the repeated habit of restraint forms character. Imagine a craftsman chiseling stone. Each strike seems small, but with patience the form emerges. Likewise, each time you choose calmness over anger, you carve the outline of your soul. Over months and years, what once required effort becomes second nature. Picture the sea crashing endlessly against rocks. The sea never rests, but the rocks endure, shaped slowly by water. Calmness is like those rocks, not untouched by storms, but steady within them. Across life's seasons, youth and ambition, middle age and duty, old age and reflection, calmness provides the foundation to meet each stage with steadiness. Yet calmness is not only self-protection, it is a way of aligning with the flow of nature. The Stoics often reminded themselves that we are part of a larger order, governed by reason and change. Anger arises when we resist that order, demanding the world bend to us. Calmness arises when we accept reality as it is and align our will with it. Over a lifetime, this alignment deepens. We see not just moments, but patterns, not just events, but the order that contains them. Consider Marcus Aurelius. Though emperor of Rome, he wrote privately to himself, urging his heart toward calmness. Surrounded by war, politics, and betrayal, he reminded himself that life is brief, that anger wastes time, and that only virtue endures. His calmness was not perfection, but persistence, a daily recommitment despite setbacks. That persistence reveals what makes calmness a lifelong journey. It is never complete, only renewed. Memory strengthens this path. Calmness deepens as you look back and see how anger once ruled you, but no longer does. Seneca wrote that anger rises quickly but fades slowly. With practice, you begin to notice its rise earlier, respond more gently, and recover more swiftly. A calm life is not without struggle, but one where struggle yields wisdom. Relationships demonstrate this vividly. Friendships, marriages, and families cannot last decades without patience. A harsh word may scar a moment, but repeated calmness preserves the whole story. To remain calm in conflict protects the larger bond from being broken by a single chapter. Calmness becomes devotion, not only to peace of mind, but to the endurance of love itself. The same applies to ambition. Youth often burns with pride and envy, and without calmness, ambition destroys more than it builds. With time, a calm mind sees that true ambition is not domination, but the growth of character. Anger may win small victories, but calmness builds legacies. The Stoics taught that a calm soul is unshaken by fortune, whether it brings wealth or loss. Carried across decades, this becomes freedom itself. Now imagine yourself many years from now, older, seated quietly, as life continues around you. The storms of youth are memories, the ambitions of middle age softened, What remains is the tone of your soul. Did you nurture calmness or allow anger to rule? The measure of life is not trophies on a shelf, but the peace within the heart. Calmness becomes the true inheritance, not only for yourself, but for those who witnessed your life. The path, however, is not without obstacles. Modern life offers endless reasons to abandon calmness: political division, digital outrage, global crises. Everything feels urgent, demanding reaction. Yet calmness resists the tyranny of urgency. It whispers that not every fire is yours to fight, not every outrage deserves your voice. Learning which battles to ignore is as vital as choosing which to face. Practical rituals sustain this journey. Morning reflection can set the tone for calmness. Evening journaling builds awareness of how anger arose and how it could be reframed. Returning often to the wisdom of philosophers or poets nourishes the discipline. These are not tasks to complete, but lifelong companions, reminders that calmness is not a single decision, but a rhythm renewed daily. Calmness also restores what anger depletes. A life guided by calmness has the strength to endure illness, loss, and aging. When the body weakens, calmness strengthens the spirit. When the world disappoints, calmness steadies the heart. For the Stoics, calmness was not luxury, but survival. At last, we reflect on legacy. A person who lives calmly not only finds peace for themselves, but models it for others. Children, students, and communities inherit its wisdom. They learn that true strength lies not in shouting, but in listening, not in striking, but in enduring. Calmness ripples outward, echoing beyond a single life. At its deepest level, calmness is freedom. To remain calm is to remain free, from impulse, from manipulation, from anger's chains. This freedom cannot be granted by others. It must be earned daily. Over years, it becomes the core of identity. Others may call it wisdom, but you know the truth. Wisdom is simply calmness practiced until it becomes who you are. So the journey of calmness does not end with a single day or a single choice. Each sunrise invites us again to meet the world without anger, and each sunset offers a quiet moment to reflect on where we succeeded and where we stumbled. Slowly, life shifts from being a struggle against impulse into a pilgrimage toward peace. This pilgrimage is endless, because calmness is not separate from life itself. It is the art of living. To walk this path is to embrace wisdom, to embody freedom, and to live with a steadiness that outlasts every storm. As we come to a close, remember that calmness is not weakness but power. To stay calm and never angry, as Chrysippus of Soli taught, is to hold the key to a life of clarity, strength, and compassion. The storms of the world may continue, but within you, there can be stillness. Here at Stoic Dhamma, we invite you to carry this wisdom into your week. Ask yourself, in which moment will I choose calmness instead of anger? Share your reflections in the comments, and if this journey speaks to you, consider subscribing to join us in future explorations. In our next video, we will turn to another timeless reminder. Life wisdom is about learning how to live a good life. Until then, may you walk with peace and strength.
References 1. Long, A.A., 2006. Stoic Studies and Early Greek Philosophy Insights. Cambridge University Press. Point 2. Sellers, J., 2003. The Art of Living Stoic Philosophy Ancient and Modern. Routledge. Point 3. Inwood, B., 2018. Chrysippus Fragments Stoic Logic Ethics and Philosophy of Mind. Oxford University Press.